Good evening, sports fans, and welcome to the campus of UW-Whitewater. I'm your host, Jack Harp, and alongside me today is Alex Tierling. We ask you to please excuse our momentary interruption of sports from your regular daily schedule. Today, we will be discussing everything college athletics. Let's get right into it. The expectations of winning as a college coach are higher than ever. We have seen many universities let go of solid coaches such as Urban Meyer from the NFL's Jacksonville Jaguars, Scott Frost from Nebraska, and Paul Chryst from UW Badgers football. Are coaching gigs too cutthroat? Alex, what do you think?
I think that they are. They are certainly looking to be that way, even just in college athletics. Past 4 weeks have had 5 different head coaches be fired, and some of them were not so surprising due to just poor records and not doing so well for these past few seasons. But others, like Paul Chryst, were an absolute curveball. I mean, a winning coach gets fired after 2 poor losses back-to-back. It didn't seem to make sense to me either, as last year, Paul Chryst had the same thing going into week 3 and 4, 2 very poor losses. I don't know how you would even go about firing someone like that with someone who pulled the season back. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you can see it tends to go back to expectations more than absolute performance. With Paul Chryst in particular, I mean, 2 and 3 isn't a great start for anybody, but for Badgers fans and that organization in particular, they have higher expectations than that. Paul Chryst, in Wisconsin in particular, they get some of the best athletes in the country, especially in the state, of course.
Absolutely.
Alex, what do you think?
I mean, you're right on that one. We've had some very good players come through Madison, and it's just very interesting. But speaking of players, how do you think those athletes feel now that they've kind of had their head coach just taken away from them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're a guy who was recruited by Paul Chryst, Scott Frost, one of these guys who was fired so early into this season, I mean, you're kind of left in limbo now almost, wondering if you're an offensive player, what the playbook's going to look like, or if you're on defense, what that defensive scheme's going to be. And you have no idea how that's going to affect your play, your record, and your future if we're talking about football in particular, possibly as an NFL player.
Yeah, especially so. I mean, just looking at Madison alone, having the defensive coordinator be moved to head coach, well, who's going to take defensive coordinator? Are they going to manage it differently than the new head coach did? I'm not so sure. Even then, the new head coach, I believe his name's Jim Leonard, he actually was recruited by Paul Chryst. So to see that go away and see the emotion in interviews, especially after Paul Chryst's firing, that was very just emotional. It's a big wave of emotion.
Yeah, in Wisconsin in particular, when you move Jim Leonard up from defensive coordinator to head coach, you don't know how much of a culture change that's even going to bring, considering that is Chryst's guy. So we'll see how that ends up working for Wisconsin and these other schools that have let go of their coaches recently.
Especially so. I mean, I think that if this is a pattern and it's going to keep up, then it's probably going to reach other schools that have had either poor records or poor coaches. I'm hoping not to see any of it, and I want to be proven wrong, but we'll see. Only time will tell.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Alex. Next up, we will discuss name, image, and likeness deals for student athletes and if they are effective. Stay tuned for more on UWW-TV.
We'd love to show you what it's like to be a Warhawk.
Come on!
Don't miss out on your chance to be a Warhawk.
At UW-Whitewater,
You belong here.
UWW-TV has been an important part of the campus and community since 1980.
Not only providing on-air learning opportunities for broadcast journalists and electronic media production students,
but educating and entertaining our audiences with award-winning news, live sports coverage, original programming,
as well as dedicating the mission to developing creative collaborations throughout campus.
For more information, visit our website and like us on Facebook.
check us out because you got to see what's on UWW-TV.
UW-Whitewater Athletics, a relentless pursuit of excellence across 22 sports, powered by a tradition of success. 20 national championships, 17 since 2002. 61 individual national titles. 24 National Athletes of the Year. 616 All-Americans, 115 Conference Scholar Athletes of the Year, 1,500 community service hours annually. Be a part of the tradition and join the Warhawk family.
Here at UW Whitewater Intramural Sports, we have a motto: a sport for everyone and everyone in a sport.
Come on! Stepped it anyways. Oh, she got that off, and they're gonna count it.
Had a blast. Always have fun at intramurals.
Every day we strive to go above and beyond that goal by providing healthy exercise, promoting leisure education, and giving students that competitive atmosphere they are looking for.
Yes! Yes!
It's exciting. Brings me back to those high school days with Friday Night Lights.
With our 25 different intramural sports offered, we guarantee that we have a sport for you. Go to our website and find your sport today.
All right, welcome back to Please Excuse Our Momentary Interruption of Sports from your regular daily schedule. In July of 2021, the NCAA allowed student athletes to sign name, image, and likeness deals, but many still don't agree with the methods of these NIL deals. Should college athletes still be compensated? Alex, what do you got?
I think it's a very, very tightrope to walk. On one hand, college students should want to feel like where they're going, and for at least for NFL students and students going into football, and especially competitively, the way the NFL pays is crazy, and not having any kind of income like that at all is just a little bit of a torment to them. It's kind of a little bit also a slap in the face, since they have to pay for college, and instead of making money doing what they do best as well as learning, they instead have to pay money to learn and be a part of the program. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. I think obviously a lot of the best athletes are there on scholarship, but you still hear examples of players who are there on a full scholarship and still struggle with food insecurity or sometimes even not knowing where they're going to sleep. I think it's good that we're moving the conversation away from colleges specifically paying athletes, but I don't see any reason why a player shouldn't be able to make money off of their own likeness.
Yeah, especially that. So if colleges had to pay students or athletes, then where would the money come from? I mean, would it cut it into more of the already high bill for some of these schools? Like RD Madison, it's what, 10,000-15,000 for a year? That's crazy to me. Having to pay more than that just to go to a good school, it's a little nuts.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to maintain the amateurism aspect of college athletics. This isn't the pros, despite the fact that football, basketball, those big sports in particular, they make a lot of good money for these schools. But it's important that studies and the schooling, the education in particular, is still at the front.
Absolutely, because if you're not going to be able to get through your studies, then you're going to be here more than you really want to be. Same thing applies to both you and me and every other student here on campus. The less time we spend here, the better off that we'll probably be as we go.
Yep.
Though I know colleges don't like to let go of people as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the time for, especially if you're a really good football, basketball player, there's millions of dollars to be made in the NFL and NBA. But it's important as well that, the amateurism aspect, as we've already touched on, but also that the money from the taxpayers for public universities in particular, there's still some schools, you look at Louisiana Tech, there's a famous picture of, they've got this massive, beautiful football locker room and then just like regular high school looking classrooms. And I think there's got to be a little bit more equity there.
I totally agree.
Let's transition now to the college football playoffs. The NCAA approved a move to change the current 4-team playoff to a 12-team format by 2026. Is this overkill? Alex, what do you think?
Honestly, I think it is a little bit overkill. Switching from 4-team playoffs to 12-team playoffs will just increase the amount of games from roughly 4 to I think about 8 or 12. And just to have that is not just enough. There's also now going to be 6 bowls per playoff as opposed to just the regular 2. And I think that that's going to cut in a little to not only athletes' times, but also viewers' times. I mean, when you finish watching NFL, what do you go to? Basketball. When you're done with that, where do you go? Baseball. And then back to football again. And not everyone's on that cycle, too. Like in my case, I love watching hockey. So instead of basketball, I'm more than likely going to be watching hockey instead. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing this a lot in the professional sports world in particular, the idea that we need to expand the postseason in some way. But I think with college athletes in particular, football, basketball, that's already eating into a big chunk of their year at school. And I think it's important that they have other things to focus on. Of course, they're there for their studies, they're there for their education, especially even if you make it to the NFL or NBA, it's always nice to have a backup plan in mind.
Absolutely. I mean, going from, I think it was January 1st to somewhere around the 16th, that's 2 whole weeks that cuts into whatever break time you may have had, where instead of taking that time off to spend time with people you care about, with your family, and with anyone else, you're instead focusing that on taking time to practice for the next upcoming game. And if you give it your all and you're out, then you might not be back there again for the next bowl, even if that was your only chance to get your team there. I think it's going to be a very big struggle with getting this playoff to just keep going and going. And if it keeps going, do you think that they're going to just keep it going further?
Yeah, I mean, slightly off topic here, but I think it's important to look at the current bowl game format and how one of the bowls that's not part of the college football playoffs as a whole, there's a lot of good players that choose not to participate in that sort of postseason that's not related to the chance of a national championship. You see guys who they don't want to get injured. They know they have an NFL, or if we're talking about March Madness even, they have an NBA future. And so it's important to them, especially as we've said, colleges aren't paying them millions of dollars like they'll get in the NFL or NBA. It's important to make sure that that future is maintained.
Yeah, and future is everything for college students. I mean, just looking at my future, it's a little bit of a toss-up, but it's not as much of a toss-up as some of these players have. I think it's going to be a very interesting thing to watch, because maybe it might even spread to other sports just outside of like the NFL. Like, for example, you mentioned basketball, maybe even volleyball or other sports like it. I think it's going to be a definite thing that needs to be watched.
Yep, absolutely, Alex. And we see in the MLB as well, thinking about expanding the postseason. The NFL has already expanded. And at some point, the games have to stay important. They have to stay this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Absolutely.
All right, next, the most underappreciated college sports takes the spotlight. You're watching PEOMIOSFYRDS on UWW-TV.
91.7 WSUW. 91.7 is a student-run radio station serving the Whitewater area with a variety of original programs, live sports broadcasting, community events, and more. So turn us on 91.7 FM or stream us live at 917theedge.com.
Life is defined by moments. In those moments, student athletes at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater shine. With world-class facilities and coaching staff, we set our Warhawk athletes up for success in the classroom, in the community, and in competition. Through our championship culture, we prepare you to make an impact in the future. Learn more about the Warhawk Athletics family at uwwsports.com.
As an Army ROTC cadet at Whitewater, you have the opportunity to develop into a great leader while learning and applying the Army values to your everyday life. Within ROTC, you have the chance to travel overseas in the CULP program to train with other militaries, attend many elite Army schools such as Airborne and Combat Diver, and you have the opportunity to attend conferences and guest lectures by some of the Army's top-ranking officers. Our Warhawk cadets participate in many extracurricular activities, Division III sports, Greek life, intramural sports, among many other team building and community service events. Being a cadet at Whitewater is more than just being part of the Army. It's also about being active members in our community and coming together to form a family atmosphere. Anyone who wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves while developing themselves professionally should consider UW-Whitewater ROTC. To sign up for UW-Whitewater ROTC, go to the 4th floor of McCutcheon Hall to room 417.
Welcome back to the show. Alongside Alex Tierlink, I'm Jack Harp. While football and basketball take the cake for the popularity in college athletics, which sport is the most underappreciated? Alex, what do you think?
Honestly, there's quite a number of sports. I mean, you can look at women's sports in general. It doesn't get as much popularity as men's. I mean, I've heard of women's volleyball every now and then. Men's and women's hockey is another good one. Have you even watched some lacrosse games recently? I tried watching one, and it was actually pretty interesting. It was a pretty fun thing to watch. How about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I haven't quite made it to a lacrosse game yet, but I was at a women's volleyball match this year, and just the electricity, the energy in the arena was really something to see, especially among a sport that historically isn't a big money sport like football, basketball, baseball. It was really nice to see that the sports environment that we pride ourselves on here at UW-Whitewater was still in full effect, even when it's not a big football game or basketball game, something like that.
Absolutely. Even then, did you know that the NCAA also supports single-based sports where it's just one individual as opposed to teams? Like, for example, fencing is a sport that the NCAA supports, and we do have a fencing club here on campus. Have you ever fenced before?
I have not, but I like what you're going on with individual sports. I've been a big tennis guy my entire life, and the tennis program at Whitewater doesn't get as much love as I feel like it should. Both men's and women's tennis have a great history here at Whitewater, and it's really something that people should try to get to when they can.
Absolutely. I mean, I've watched 1 or 2 tennis games myself, and I think the sport of tennis is fun, even though I personally am not that good at it. There are quite a few other sports, though, as well, like hockey as well. Have you ever watched a hockey game here?
I have not, but moving on with my bias being from Wisconsin and all that, looking at the UW Badgers women's volleyball team, they won the national title in 2021, and that's something that they definitely got their recognition from it, but you don't really hear about it nowadays as much as you'd expect. Like if it was football, basketball, again, one of those big money sports like that, you would never hear the end of it. But this women's volleyball team at UW-Madison, as well as here at Whitewater, they're great teams, they're great athletes, and it's a great sport, great experience. Again, I'll say great energy in that arena here.
Absolutely. I think that any sport can have a great amount of energy and a great amount of intrigue and interest to watch. Even something like gymnastics, something that is more of a formality in terms of sporting, is still a very interesting thing to watch. You see something that sometimes you just normally wouldn't see in maybe baseball or football. I think it's personally a very cool thing to find something that's even a little niche, little bit of something that'll keep you interested enough in between those bigger sports.
Yeah, overall, I think it's important that Whitewater in particular, but really across the whole sporting world, there's more to sports than just football, baseball, basketball. If you want to include hockey as one of the big four American sports, go ahead. But some of these lesser appreciated sports, they can still provide the same sporting experience, the same environment that we crave from, the Super Bowl, the NBA Finals, the World Series.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any big sporting event is always a pleasure to watch. But maybe let's look for some of these other sports this year as well. Because, for example, the Olympics has a bunch of other sports that you normally don't see on the world stage, like football or soccer or anything like that. I think that looking for some of these smaller sports would be an excellent way to bide our time in between these bigger sports.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. When we come back, we'll present our final thoughts for this week's episode. Stay tuned.
What does it mean to be a Warhawk?
It means allowing myself to dream big and think outside the box.
Pushing the limits of what I think is possible.
Seeing ideas through from start to finish.
Collaborating with professors and peers.
And seizing opportunities in the community to put my knowledge to use.
I'm studying abroad,
learning another language,
and listening to the stories of others.
I'm making lifelong friends and fearlessly sharing my gifts with the world.
As a Warhawk, I stay balanced,
take great care of myself,
and get out of my comfort zone.
I refuse to let the past determine my future.
And I'm taking confident steps in the direction of my dreams.
Sometimes it doesn't make sense.
And other times it couldn't be more exciting.
But I will keep my goals in mind
and never quit.
Because
that's the Warhawk way.
Matt checking in to see how Sam is doing on his project. And it's getting close to exporting now, the final step in the process. And it is complete, and Sam is hyped. Finally gets complete and spikes the ball into the end zone. Sam's celebrating with his colleagues, and they throw a flag on the play. The ref's going to call excessive celebration. Sam is in disbelief and can't believe it. He tries to dispute the call, but the ref is not having any of it.
UW Whitewater Athletics, a relentless pursuit of excellence across 22 sports, powered by a tradition of success. 20 national championships, 17 since 2002. 61 individual national titles. 24 National Athletes of the Year. 616 All-Americans. 115 Conference Scholar Athletes of the Year. 1,500 community service hours annually. Be a part of the tradition and join the Warhawk family.
Welcome back to PEOMIOSFYRDS. Let's wrap it up by talking about our final thoughts from today's episode.
Absolutely. We've seen a lot of changes within the business side of sports. There's been so much changing, from changing of head coaches to changing of places and times, and even getting back into certain sports after COVID. But I want to give a big shout out to all those collegiate athletes out there. The fact that you're coming back every year, playing these games, playing it for your team or for yourself, depending on your sport. You are what makes your sport interesting, whether you know it or not. There's a lot of other things like organizations and all that, but you are sometimes the real reason why people show up to your sport. And you are a real reason of why that sport is fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, through COVID in particular, being able to persevere through that, being able to put in all that work and have, for some sports in particular, having a full season taken away was really rough on a lot of people. But it's great to see that so many athletes were able to come back stronger than ever and still playing their sport, still loving it, still giving us the entertainment that we crave here in this sports world.
Absolutely. And even for people who play sports, it is a lot of fun to play. And COVID kind of took some time away from that. But I appreciate you for all coming back.
And thank you, Alex. That will do it for us here tonight. Thank you for watching, and tune in next time to hear more hot takes all around the world of sports. This has been Please Excuse Our Momentary Interruption of Sports from your regular daily schedule on UWW TV.